Good morning. My name is Johannes Gita. I'm one of the elders here at the church, and I have the honor of preaching on Psalm 88. In fact, we're going to do Psalm 88 over 2 Sundays. Today, I'm going to do just an overview of this type of psalm. I am going to go through it. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with suffering and being close to death. And then next week, I'm going to shift gears and analyze it in a different way, and we'll get more into the specifics of Psalm 88. So if we look at Psalms in general, they're divided up into essentially 5 books, with each book finishing with a doxology. The doxology is, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting." So there is this general organization, starting with 1 to 41, as a description of God's kingdom with David. Then as we move into 42 to 72, it's really the fall, not the full of the kingdom, but the fall of the kingdom, and what happened to the Israelites over that period of time. Book 3 then is Psalms 33 to 89. This is the darkness of exile as the people were conquered and moved off. Psalms 90 to 106 is in general a move towards restoration. And finally, in the book 5, it has the restoration of the kingdom. The last 5 Psalms are a doxology, a spread out doxology, praising God for his plan and what's done. So Psalm 88 is in that exile period. It's the middle phase. It's about loss, grief, lament. Now, all of those books it's kind of interspersed, but as you move into the exile, the laments become stronger. And as you get through it, towards the end, we have more songs of praise and thanksgiving. The big picture in Psalms is this struggle. Firstly, Psalm 1 is more about the individual and how he should live. Should he live the blessed way or following God in what is right? Here the word blessed means in the right path, resonating a righteousness, resonating God's intent. Or do we go against God and go the wicked way, the way apart from him, the way of our own hearts? For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to ruin. Psalm 2 introduces the same thing, except it looks at it as in a corporate way. The body as a whole, not just individuals, but are we for God or against God? Is it rebellion or service as a people? And here already you start seeing the hints at a solution. How is God going to fix this? How are we going to get the right balance between his way and the way of man? So when you look at Psalms, you can divide them up into 3 big categories. One is Psalms of praise. There are Psalms of thanksgiving. And there are songs of lament. So songs of praise are focused on God and his power and his love for us and his caring, his grace. Psalms of thanksgiving thank him for these things, the blessings that he gives us in our lives. They hint at a reality that's often lost, especially today. There's just so much negativity. Goodness and love and positive things are real. When I'm dealing with people who struggle with suicide and depression, this isn't always easy to make real for them that there is goodness and love. Most people get stuck in that darkness. But it is a truth about this world. It is beautiful. And there is love. And being with people, there's a real goodness in it. The problem is that that's not all there is. The world is broken. There is, in the Christian belief, a fall. And when you read the Bible, it doesn't play that down. It isn't all just wonder and beauty and perfection. The Bible acknowledges quite clearly that this life is suffering. There is evil, which leaves us with that second problem, that contradiction. Life is good, beautiful, amazing. It's full of love. But there is also suffering and cruelty. There is evil, and that's real. And if you can't amalgamate those two things, if you can't find yourself accepting and living both aspects, you're caught in this chaotic tension of a life. So Psalm 8 is a lamentation. It's probably the darkest of the lamentations. And it's really dealing with this concept of a good, great God who is loving and caring, but a world where we as followers, or even non-followers, suffer, grieve, experience evil, attacks by other people. There's this, what do we do with this loving God who's given us this world, but the amazing pain that we all will suffer? One of the books that I worked through by Tyler Watson called My Companions Are in Darkness, which is a meditation on Psalm 88. I love his quote here. If all we have to say to God in the midst of chaos are the words of praise and thanksgiving, we will eventually face a choice. Either delude ourselves into thinking that our turmoil does not exist, or walk away from this God who either does not care or about our suffering or seems incapable of helping us. If we can't find this balance of good but also bad, if we can't take that to God, our Christianity, our faith, our maturity is very incomplete and very immature. Faith needs the lament. Relational loyalty with God means bringing everything to Him, not just praise, not just thanksgiving, but also anguish, suffering. He wants us to deal with Him in all the facets of our life, including the rather dark, angry, tumultuous stuff. And you see that. You see that in Job. You see that everywhere. You see it even in Jesus on the cross, suffering. My God, why have you forsaken me? So, Psalm 88. We'll go through it. Like I said, I'm going to go through it relatively quickly and then go through it in more detail next week. So Psalm 88, verses 1 to 3. Lord God of my salvation, I cry out before you day and night. May my prayer reach your presence. Listen to my cry, for I have had troubles and my life is near. I have had enough troubles and my life is near Sheol. So in that, we have the two sort of words for God. This is a very intimate psalm. So the word is Yahweh, and Elohim. So, Lord, God of gods, you are my salvation. The word there is Yeshua. You are my stability, my rescuer. And it's a declaration that starts from there, the turmoil begins, his struggles, his anguish. But he starts the psalm with that declaration. The word for troubles is the same word that we use for evil. For I have had enough of evil in this life. And the word for cry is really to scream out. It's not a weeping kind of crying. It's an anguish, heartfelt scream. Going on, for I am counted among those going down in the pit. I am like a man without strength, abandoned among the dead. I am like the slain lying in the grave, whom you no longer remember and are cut off from your care. You have put me in the lowest part of the pit, in the darkest places, in the depths. Your wrath weighs heavily upon me. You have overwhelmed me with all of your waves. The harshness here, this is someone struggling at the edge of death. And as you get into it, it feels like he is beyond death. He's in the grave. He's in the place of such deep sorrow, utterly alone, overwhelmed, feeling nothing from God but God's anger, God's punishment, beaten down and overwhelmed with one wave of sorrow after another. Verse 8, you have distanced my friends from me. You have made me repulsive to them. I am shut in and cannot go out. My eyes are worn out from crying. Lord, and again, Yahweh, I cry out to you all day long. I spread out my hands to you. Will your faithful love be declared in the grave? Your faithfulness in Abaddon? Will your wonders be known in the darkness, or your righteousness in the land of oblivion? It has that hint of Job, right? Where Job is suffering and he's questioning God and he's angry at God. And he says, can I praise you? Can I praise you? Can I love you? Can I worship you from this darkness, from this pit? Verse 13. But I call to you for help, Lord, Yahweh. In the morning my prayers meet you. Lord, why do you reject me? Why do you hide your face from me? From my youth I have been afflicted and near death. I suffer your horrors. I am desperate. Your wrath sweeps over me. Your terrors destroy me. They surround me like water all day long. They close in on me from every side. That water motif in ancient times was one of chaos. The picture there is chaos and where the demons dwell, where the evil is, where confusion is, surrounded entirely by water and what's in water to destroy you. Verse 18. And this is the second time he says that. So you want to notice in this psalm a couple of things that are highlighted by the sufferer. And one of them is this disconnect from fellowship, this loss of community, this isolation from from friends, family, loved ones. You have distanced loved ones and neighbors from me. Darkness is all I know. A better original translation, it actually finishes with the word darkness. My only companion is darkness. This is a picture of me when I, just after the honeymoon, we went to Germany. I always joke, if you look at me now and you look there, my poor wife, it looks like she married Robert Redford and somehow ended up with Gene Hackman. Just a heavy-set bald guy. I don't know at which point I converted, but there it is. So just before our honeymoon, I had gone to one of the doctors. I was in medical school. I was 23 years old there. I married a much older woman. Naomi was in her mid-40s. No, she was 3 months older than me. So I had gone to the doctor, and I had this lump. And I remember the doctor, he was a good doctor by what people told me. He examined the lump and told me that I had medical school syndrome, meaning I was being silly and I was worried about every new disease that I was studying, which is a thing. It happens as you train in medicine. So on the honeymoon, I was wondering why, after years of hiking, we did a lot of mountains in Switzerland and Austria, why I couldn't keep up with my wife, who wasn't half as fit as I was. And when we got back, I went back to medical school, and I found out that those lumps were actually Hodgkin's, and I now had stage 4 cancer, which is not as treatable. It's the severest form. So I tried to struggle through medical school, but it was hard seeing patients and then vomiting from chemo. So I dropped out. And the next year, I had 4 surgeries and 8 or 9 months of chemotherapy. And the chemotherapy, not that chemotherapy now is a lot funner, it's still gross, but the chemo there was absolutely disgusting. For me, it got to the point over the 8 months that if I was in 3 or 4 blocks of the cancer center where I was getting chemo, I would fall down and start rolling around and puking. In the end, for the last few treatments, I had to be sedated a day or 2 before, and I had to be out cold for when they did the chemo. Even after I went back to medical school, it took me 2 or 3 years to enter that building because where I was training was one building over from the cancer center. And it was really tough walking that way without sort of coming undone. My wife had been through a number of deaths in her family. So this was terribly hard for her. Her dad had died of cancer. And so she couldn't really be with me when I was sick. It was just too terrifying. In her mind, I was dead already. I don't blame her for any of this. She is an awesome woman, and she stood by me. If people know me, they usually respect Naomi a lot because she's been there, and I'm probably not the easiest guy to be with. But there, it was just too much. That dog, because I thought I was going to die, and I'd never had a puppy of my own, so I bought a dog, and that dog nursed me. I would vomit every 5 to 10 minutes, and that dog actually cleaned me up. Stood by me, licked my sweat off. It was an amazing animal. Twice during chemo, I was ready to kill myself. Once was strictly neurologic. They gave me a medicine to make the nausea go away, but that same medicine caused such a writhing in my brain, just a terrible tension that was so uncomfortable. If I would have had a knife, I would have plunged it into my heart. I'm 100% convinced of that. Instead, though, I was able to use some bad words, which I normally didn't do as a good Christian boy. I used some rather rancor language to tell the nurse to please kindly shut the medicine off. And over an hour, it did go away, and I was feeling better. The second time, I would have accepted death, and suicide was right at the end. So what happened was, I did all the chemo. I did the surgeries. It was now August. Everything was finished. I was pretty weak, pretty worn out. I had the final surgery. The ultrasound showed that I still had big masses in my belly. And the feelings were that the cancer had not responded. And I looked back and thought, if I had to do even one more chemo, I would be better off dead. Fortunately, the tumors or the large nodes that they saw ended up being just shells. And that was a long time ago now. In 2001, I had my first heart attack. I was 39 years old. It runs in our families. We have this genetic wonky heart. And I seem to be the one accepting all disorders from the family. So I was really fit at that point. I don't look like a fit man there, but I was running, working out. I still had my chemo head. I used to have a nice thin face, but chemo left me more chunky. I actually gained 40 pounds over the course of my chemo. The family, that was in Germany. When we came back, I remember going for a jog and having this intense sweating and this phenomenal squeeze. And I had a heart attack. The most awful thing about it was when I was in the ICU in the hospital here in Prince George, was looking at my boys and the terror in their eyes and thinking, look, I can't be there for them. I might be leaving the world. And the anguish of that and the anguish of the not knowing. We got through that too. The next time I was faced with death, well, if you know me, almost every time I get on a quad, I'm usually, somebody's thinking I'm going to do something and I could die. But besides the quad riding, the next real time I was facing death was last summer. Here's just a wonderful picture of me. I've never been good with Lego, and I've never been good with any kinds of hands-on construction. That is the gift of my brother. But somehow my body does have the ability to create archways. So from all the surgeries I had when I was 23, my body apparently built a scar arch. And then my intestine managed to go through the arch and twist. So I had a bowel obstruction. It came on in midsummer. It was like we had company over. It was, I'm fine. And in 5 minutes, I was throwing up. And then I kept throwing up, and I kept throwing up. And by morning, I was down to 192 pounds. I had lost about 20 to 25 pounds of fluid. And being a real big, tough guy, I refused to go to the hospital. My son actually had to make the decision that I be hauled in. So if anybody's had a nasogastric tube, I got one of those. It is probably the most disgusting thing I've had to live through. Unfortunately, the diagnosis wasn't clear, so I had a week of the tube down my nose and couldn't eat. And I was feeling a little bit better, and I hate hospitals, the irony being I work there. But I hate hospitals, so I managed to fake myself out of there. But again, it came on with a vengeance. I couldn't hold anything down. So I was brought back, another NG put down. That was 2 weeks then. I had to have major surgery. Nothing but sweat, no food, constant pain, constant agony, constant, almost in and out of delirium. But the pain between the tube and the spasms in the gut was probably the worst thing I've had, even compared to all the chemo and heart attacks. And kidney stones. I am blessed with kidney stones on a regular basis. So I get a sense of what it means to feel like it'd be better to be dead. I want to talk a little bit about how we suffer. Yahweh Elohim Yeshua, Lord God of my deliverance, my welfare, my victory. The beauty, the maturity in this psalm, he starts with that proclamation. He starts with, I'm yours. You are my salvation. What do I got? I trust in you. Before anything else, if there is nothing else, you are mine. I am yours. I hope in you. When I think about how we mature to that point, there's definitely stages. I don't think a Christian is automatically there. Certainly, I wasn't. When I look at that early cancer years, definitely felt through all of that God was there. In fact, I think that cancer and that suffering was the masterstroke in my life. I would not trade that for anything else. I thank God dearly for what he did for me in that cancer, in that year of suffering. That may not be everything I felt, but at that time, but it was definitely his gift. And he stayed with me in my friends, in my church, and with his Spirit through all of that. But the first stages of this walk in life, any walk, love and hope and walk through suffering, is this transition that you see in the Song of Solomon. There's 3 of these declarations that the bride says about her groom. So 2:16, my love is mine, and I am his. Now, what you notice in that, there is clearly a relationship in faith here, but the focus is on the bride. The focus is on me. It's what I have in God that is most important. God comes as a secondary thing to me. And really then that leaves us with that anger suffering. Where is God? Like, what's he doing to me? What's going on? I have a relationship, but I'm me and my needs are first. God is not holding his end of the bargain. So there's that tension and anger. As we mature and we experience his love, we move through the next phase of that. So in Psalm 6:3, the phrasing has changed. I am my love's, and my love is mine. So again, what you've seen is I'm not as possessive. I see myself as God's. God's needs are primary. What does he need from me? In my suffering, in my grief, in my pain, in my agony, what does he need? What is he doing for me? So now that's moved to the forefront. I still am possessive. So I am my love's, and my love is mine. I still own him. I still expect from him some relief, something. I need an answer. I need a why. I need a relief. I need something. And then we move to, I think, the position of the psalmist here. In Song of Solomon 7:10, I belong to my love, and his desire is for me. I don't, again, think that this is easy to get to. This is hard to get to. But this is how the psalmist is suffering in Psalm 88. And this is where we can and hopefully will get to in our lives. I belong to my love. I am God's, completely and utterly given over. He is first and foremost. His will is my desire. But not only that, his desire is for me. And what the psalmist is saying there is, look, I know God cares for me. I don't need to ask him for anything. If I suffer, he loves me, and it is best for me. If I'm being attacked, I need some kind of correction, he loves me. He is building me. I trust his desire for me is so good that whatever is given me is for my best. He is my best. That's the beauty in Psalm 88. This is expressed elsewhere. Habakkuk 3:7, a verse that's always kind of, been years for me has been sort of that motivating passage. It's at the end of Habakkuk, and Habakkuk is seeing over the destruction of the people of God and them being taken away and everything destroyed. And he's angry with God that this is happening. But he finishes his anger with, though the fig tree does not bud, though there is no fruit in the vines, though the whole olive crops fail and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stables, though there is nothing left, everything is destroyed, I have nothing, no food, no resources, nothing. Yet, I will triumph in Yahweh. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. It's not about what I have. It's not about pain. It's not about anything. It is simply about God, his will, and his care. That's how we suffer. That's why we need to lament. If we don't lament, we never get to that depth. Again, firstly, it's amazing and truly Christian that my wife is still with that man. That's my first meal after last summer. I don't want to criticize the hospital food, but it took me 2 weeks to figure out that the drink in that little cup was coffee. I thought they were giving me some kind of weak health drink. But turns out that's coffee. It just doesn't taste or resemble coffee. I don't think I experienced Psalm 88. I do not think I experienced Psalm 88. I am happy with how I suffered. Because in my pain and in my darkness, in my aloneness, in my sweating and cramps and agony, I danced with God. He was there all the way through. I had sermons playing in my head. I'm pretty sure I'm an expert in delirium. I'm pretty sure I wasn't delirious. I was with God. And I felt a closeness that He cared for me. He was my hope. I feel closer to Him as a result of that. It grieves me that when I get back into my own world and my own life, I'm really not at that level all the time. But I felt His care. So I don't know. I don't think Psalm 88 is a description of what we experience and what we have to experience. It is a lesson of how we are to suffer. But next week I'm going to talk about what I think this psalm really is about. I believe it's about Jesus and what He suffered for you and me after the cross and in the cross. Let me close in prayer. God, we can't begin to know how much You love us and how much You've sacrificed for us. You are our one and only true hope. Help us live in the depth of Your love. Help us know You more deeply, trust You more deeply. Thank You for Your many blessings. Be with our body as we suffer through this time. Help us to be together in any way we can. Amen. Thank you.